everything was secret. We didn't know when we were going to be flying. We didn't know where we were flying. The only ones that knew were the pilot and the navigator. And we didn't understand. Everything that we did flying was all radio silence. So we didn't know where we were going. But once we were in the air, we could, on the intercom between us, we could understand we're going to, we're flying over the North Sea, but we didn't know exactly where. And so we were never told. But when we originally went into this, to Harrington, where the Carpetbaggers were flying out of for the OSS, they took us into a room and they said to us, "Look, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be flying at night. You'll be flying about 500 feet above the deck." What was the next thing? Oh, and they said it'll only be at night, only during the moon nights. So if you're interested in doing this, you can sign up now, and we'll let you do this. If you don't want to do it, you can forget about it. You can go. You can actually leave here. But what they told us before we even started is that if you go out and talk about this to anybody, you will be brought back and shot.
You're listening to the Born Primitive Podcast. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Primitive Podcast. Before we get into the actual episode, Tony and I just wanted to kind of summarize what we have going on here. We're going to do a two-part series around the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which is happening on June 6th. A charity we support called the Best Defense Foundation has an incredible mission. One of the pillars of what they do is their battlefield return program, and they take World War II veterans kind of back to their battlefields and give them this big hero's welcome, and it allows these guys and girls to get closure in the final stages of their life. Many of them have never been back since the war. So for this one, Best Defense Foundation is taking over 60 of these guys back to Normandy for the 80th, which is a huge, kind of commemoration. And it's a huge logistical effort. You got companies like Delta Airlines that are helping them out, and they make it's a hero's welcome. They do a big gala the night before, and the entire time they're treated like royalty. Even the flight attendants were dressed like in the World War II era. They did a mail call on the flight, and the little elementary school students wrote them letters, and they do a big parade in Normandy, and everyone's dressed up like it was the era. It's just a really cool, incredible moment, and this is an effort we wanted to support. So when the Best Defense Foundation contacted us a couple years ago to potentially financially support them, this was a mission that absolutely aligned with us. And as you can imagine, at this point, we literally get probably 5 or 6 of these requests a week. And for whatever reason, I read that one closer, and it really stood out, and we've been supporting them ever since. I've had the privilege of doing the Pearl Harbor reunion, which was absolutely incredible. And this D-Day one coming up, I'm going to be able to attend as well. So little over last year sometime, we were thinking about launching our Savage One shoe, and we thought about, okay, what can we do to kind of put our own Born Primitive spin on this? But as you guys have kind of seen, we try to leverage our platform and do what we're good at to give us the ability to financially contribute to these organizations and these causes. So the idea of the D-Day edition Savage One came to life, and we thought it would be perfect way to support the 80th, which we knew would be big. So before we get into Bill's episode, which is absolutely fascinating, you got to wait to the end, because his line at the very end is apparently the trick for the Fountain of Youth. So we'll leave that as a little teaser to hopefully keep you listening through to the end, and it'll absolutely give you a laugh. But I really quick just wanted to break down the shoe here, and so for those that are watching, or if you're on Spotify, you can actually watch as well. But it's the classic OD green kind of World War II colorway. On the back, it says 6/6/1944 0630 Operation Overlord, which was the name of the operation. And as you look it down at your toes, it says damn few, and American flag on the inner heel. So that's the actual shoe. I think it turned out really badass. We went through a bunch of iterations of this to try to get that colorway right. And then on May 31st, these will launch. In addition to that, we're going to be launching 500 collector's editions. We wanted to have some fun with this one. So this one, so for all of these, 100% of profits up to 50K is going to get donated. So we want to make sure, we caveat that. The collector's edition is going to come in this wooden crate. Inside the wooden crate is going to be the ammo can branded. For those that are watching, you can see part of it. And then within the ammo can, of course, the shoes will be in there. But what makes this a bit more special is you're going to be getting a vial of sand from Omaha Beach. We got permission from the French government to bring that back. When they heard about the cause and they knew it was going to charity, they supported it. So thank you to them. You'll get a commemorative challenge coin for the 80th anniversary. You'll get the Order of the Day from General Eisenhower. And then last, which I think is the coolest, you're going to get 6 baseball cards that show the bios of these veterans that are participating in the Battlefield Return Program. So you'll see their picture kind of present day. You flip the card over and you'll see their, what they looked like when they were just a young buck, and kind of a quick bio on what they did during the war, which is really cool and really humbling. And the gentleman we're about to interview, which we'll segue into, Bill Becker, was no different than that, flying in the B-24 Liberator. So this will launch May 31st, so just in a few days. We think this is going to go really quick. Again, this gives us the ability to make a financial contribution to something that is such a cool cause. So make sure you check out the Best Defense Foundation and follow us on Instagram. We'll be over there putting out a lot of content, and hopefully we get to speak to more of these guys. And then next Tuesday's episode, part 2, will be with Donnie Edwards, who is the founder of the Best Defense Foundation. He's a former NFL linebacker, absolute legend. And then since he's retired, this has become a big part of his mission, and he has done incredible things standing up this organization and build it into an absolute powerhouse in what they're doing. So we hope you enjoy the episode with Bill. He's an absolute character. He's from the Bronx, just a really cool dude, and is still sharp as a tack. So without further ado, we're going to roll right into it. And thank you so much for listening. And also thank you for you guys for giving us the ability to do stuff like this. It's really humbling, and we're going to continue to hopefully be able to leverage this platform for good. So thank you so much. This is a unique moment. We're coming up on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and we have the privilege of having World War II veteran Bill Becker with us today, and we're going to get into his story. This is part of our support of the Best Defense Foundation, who is taking over 60 World War II veterans back to Normandy for the 80th, which is just an incredible thing that we'll get in more into. Without further ado, I just want to give Bill's quick bio. Sergeant William Bill Becker, an armorer gunner of the 492nd Bomb Group, 856th Bomb Squadron, 8th Air Force. Bill was born in the Bronx, New York City. He graduated from high school in 1943, and the reason I call that out is because Bill would join the service the following year in April of 1944. He attended basic training and then ended up going through Biloxi, Mississippi, and was trained as a top turret gunner in Panama City, Florida, and then was sent to England, where he was assigned to the 801st 492nd Bombardment Group, codename Carpetbaggers. This group was the air arm of the OSS, the pre-runner to the CIA. The group flew many covert missions to French, Norwegian, and Danish underground, dropping spies and supplies at night, only when there was a moonlit sky to guide their B-24 Liberator heavy bomber to the targets. Within 6 months, Bill and his crew flew 7 missions and was awarded the Air Medal. He was honorably discharged in March of 1946. The Carpetbaggers were awarded the French Croix de Guerre in 1987, which is their war cross. So without further ado, Bill, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you.
So Bill, the first question I want to ask, I understand you were in high school when Pearl Harbor happened, and I equate that a little bit to a lot of us. I was in 8th grade when 9/11 occurred. So I would imagine you were a freshman or sophomore that year. If you can remember when Pearl Harbor happened, as a young man, did you maybe connect that you might be going to war at that time, or did it take a...
Absolutely not.
And I guess, what was your reaction? I think, that was your generation's 9/11. Walk us through what that moment meant to you as a young man.
Well, we used to listen to the radio, and when they told us that Pearl Harbor was bombed, I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. But after the president got on the bed and he said, "This is war," then I started to understand that we're in a battle. And that's how I felt at that particular time, not realizing that this was a terrible thing, but because I didn't know uh, what had happened in Pearl Harbor and why this was happening.
So as you were going through high school, as you got closer to graduating your senior year, when did you decide that you were? Did you enlist or did you get drafted out of high school?
I enlisted.
Okay, and when did you make that decision?
Well, the war is on. I'm one of the youngest kids on the block in the Bronx, New York. All my buddies who are a little bit older than me, they're all in the Army, they're in the Navy, and I'm all walking the streets. I haven't got no more baseball with these guys. And I decided I'm not going to be the only one on the street. I went down to I think it was Grand Central Station in Manhattan, and I enlisted.
And Bill, at that time, as a young man, was there almost peer pressure to join one of the armed services? Like, almost as if you didn't, you were kind of seen as a coward? Or was it just so universal that everyone was pretty much doing it?
No, not everybody was doing it, but I did hear one lady on the street saying, I wonder what that guy is doing on the block where my kid is in the Army fighting the war. That's what I heard. That's one of the reasons I went down and enlisted. And when I came home and I told my mother, I said, Mom, I enlisted. You know what she said to me? If you want to get killed, you should have stayed home. I would have taken care of it.
Wow. Well, I think that summarizes the sentiment at that time. And obviously, before World War II, the U.S. was in isolationism mode. And, of course, the attack, December 7th, 1941 changed all of that and threw us into, a Second World War. So as I understand it, you went to basic training and then you got sent to England. When you were in England, when did you become aware of, the operations you guys were going to be conducting? Did they read you guys in pretty quickly on the missions, or did they keep it kind of secret until it was closer to execute?
Everything was secret. We didn't know when we were going to be flying. We didn't know where we were flying. The only ones that knew were the pilot and the navigator. And we didn't understand. Everything that we did flying was all radio silence. So we didn't know where we were going. But once we were in the air, we could, on the intercom between us, we could understand we're going to, we're flying over the North Sea, but we didn't know exactly where. And so we were never told. But when we originally went into this, to Harrington, where the Carpetbaggers were flying for the OSS, they took us into a room and they said to us, look, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be flying at night. You'll be flying about 500 feet above the deck. What was the next thing? Oh, and they said it'll only be at night, only during the moon nights. So if you're interested in doing this, you can sign up now, and we'll let you do this. If you don't want to do it, you can forget about it. You can go. You can actually leave here and make sure that you don't mention anything about what you've just heard here. And that's when they told us it was a secret thing. So we decided we're going to do it. The whole crew got together and said we're going to do it.
And Bill, did you feel confident in the job you were doing? And I ask that because it's crazy that in times of war, how condensed the training periods get, where there's guys just going through a quick basic and then they're right in the middle of a war or right in the middle of something that they weren't priorly trained for. So did you feel a level of confidence in the missions you were doing, or was there definitely some nervousness there?
There was no always confident in flying and knowing what we were doing, what our job was. But what they told us before we even started is that if you go out and talk about this to anybody, you will be brought back and shot. And that's what we decided, we don't want to get shot, not by our own guys.
And you were a turret gunner?
I was a top turret gunner and an engineer, actually assistant engineer.
Okay, and explain that. So in a B-24, how many turret spots are there?
Well, on the B-24 that we flew, we didn't have a nose turret.
Okay.
So eliminate that. We did have a top turret, which I took care of. There was a bottom turret that was taken out that wasn't used. There was a tail turret, and that there was a tail turret. So the turrets were two, a rear turret and a top turret, like me. Okay. The reason we didn't have the bottom turret is they took the turret out, and we used that as what they called the Joe hole. The Joe hole is where we dropped out agents through that hole. We didn't have to open up a Bombay to drop anybody out.
That's fascinating, because that was going to be one of my questions. I understand you dropped agents and supplies. Were these guys static lining out, or how did they? I mean, you said they're 500 feet, so that's really close for static line. I don't know if you had to raise up an altitude a little bit. When we're doing static line, I think we're around 1,000, 1,200 feet.
I suppose we did come up a little higher, but it was a static line. We had to make sure that we cleared the tail sections, and we had to be very careful about that. I wanted to mention the reason that we were using the older B-24s is that the bombardier, who ordinarily would be dropping bombs, his job was to stay up at the front and guide the pilots into the area where we were making our drops. That he was the one at night that would see if he saw a railroad station, or if he saw a road or a lake, he would know where. He wouldn't know where we were, but he knew that he saw it, and that's how he guided us. If he were in a turret, he couldn't do that.
And for these operatives, were they typically by themselves, or multiple guys getting dropped at once?
No. I never saw the guys in the back. They got on at the end, if there was one on there, if there wasn't one on there, and never got into the back to see who it was and who was being dropped.
Why was it called Joe hole?
Yeah, well, we dropped them through the Joe hole. That's where the turret used to be, the ball turret. We called that the Joe hole, because we didn't know who he was. They didn't want us to know. And if we got shot down or if we got captured, who did you drop? Joe. That's all we knew.
That is that is fascinating. The fact that you guys weren't even read in on where you were going. And as far as navigating, you made it sound like you guys had to turn off some of your, navigational devices that, assuming were emitting an electronic signature in order to be undetected. Is that accurate? And you could only go under high illumination, scenarios, obviously from the moon. So like, did you guys have to shut off a lot of the capabilities of the Liberator to stay undetected?
No, we flew, the plane flew the way it's supposed to fly. No, but at night, only the moon nights. That's even the Germans, I think, they didn't take off at night to go look for us, especially trying to shoot down planes that were 400 or 500 feet above the ground. Now, what kind of a plane is going to come in at you? But some crazies would.
Bill, I'd love to get to know kind of what the Carpetbaggers, what types of walks of life came in to make that group up. Was it people from all over the place? Was it people from a specific region of the U.S.? Like what was that group comprised of?
The ones that picked up the merchandise that we dropped.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know how many people were down there to lug it away, but all we saw was 1, 2, 3 lights in a line, and then one light off to the side, which was a red light. Those are the 1, 2, 3, 4 lights. So the one with the red light on the side would be blinking a code number. code letter at it, like did da da did, that's SOS did da 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 did. But okay, that's about all we saw. Who picked up the stuff? That was the underground, and the underground at the area that we were dropping to, and they knew that we were coming, and we had to make sure that we dropped to the right people and we got the right code.
And Bill, I don't know a ton about the mission set of the OSS on the ground, but I would imagine it sounds like you guys were dropping operatives, obviously humans, as well as supplies. I'm guessing that was a lot of weapons. Now that, obviously the time has passed, did you ever get read in on those missions, or at least what they were conducting? And I would imagine they were trying to arm the French resistance and give them advice on tactics and guerrilla warfare to disrupt the German war effort. Is that essentially what the mission set was?
Yeah, but we didn't know that. They knew it. That's how they communicated. The underground communicated with the British and the OSS, and they're the only ones that knew.
That's pretty fascinating stuff. Bill, I'm curious, when you got in that Liberator the first time for the first mission, what went through your mind?
What went through my mind? I'm trying to think. No, nothing. I mean, it's like flying again. I'm going to fly, and nothing went through my mind. I knew we were going to be doing a mission, but I didn't know where, when, how. And the first mission that we went on was nothing. Was like a piece of cake. Nothing happened. So they when we got back after that first mission, I said to the guy, "Hey, this is a piece of cake. We can do this." Well, not after the second one. This was I think in Norway or Denmark. We made it with this one time. It was in Norway. A piece of cake. Second one, no piece of cake. We did get shot. We did have get shot up a little bit, and I made it back. I got even pictures in my showing the bullet holes in the plane. Came that low. It wasn't flak. It was actually bullet holes.
Okay, and was that from a guns from the ground, or was there another enemy aircraft that engaged you guys?
Those were from the ground. From the ground, and there were planes in the air, but that was when we were flying over the North Sea. We weren't flying that time at 400 feet. We were flying about 6,000 feet. And I backed up a little bit. We were flying. We had to come over the ground, the area, diving. So instead of the plane going about 150, 200 miles an hour, we could make it go a little faster by dropping down, going straight down. And there was an ME-109 came out after us. ME-109 is the name of the plane, German plane.
And when you guys started seeing that you were kind of getting pursued by one of those, what were the emotions associated with that? That was kind of your first combat moment.
Okay, I'll give you the emotions that I had afterwards. When I got back that day, and I went in to take a shave or whatever, I don't remember, go to the latrine. I looked in the mirror and I saw one gray hair in my head. and this is no joke. And I said, me, I'm only 18 years old and I got a gray hair? I must have been that scared at the time. That was my emotion afterwards. Up until that point, I was in my turret. And if I could have been standing, my knees would have been knocking.
And were you guys engaging that target then?
We engaged, but we crossed the border into Normandy. I'm thinking Normandy, into Norway, and from there on, we went ahead and we made our drop, and we came back. We came out again.
And I guess from that point forward, now that you realize your missions aren't so easy. Was there a different mentality going into future missions? Maybe some nerves or emotions that were tied to that?
Oh, sure. You're afraid to do the next one. If one like that, if I have to go through it, was no more piece of cake.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. It's like, it's wild to put it in perspective, Bill, that, you guys were 18, 19 years old. You had gone from a senior in high school to a year later, you're in the top turret of a B-24 Liberator getting shot at by a German aircraft doing covert missions in the middle of the largest global conflict the world has ever seen. I mean, put that in perspective, right? And Bill, that's why, I hope you guys realize how much respect our country has for your generation, realizing that how many people completely changed their lives to go focus on this effort. Men and women, obviously. Most of the people doing the fighting were men, but women had a huge supporting role. And then back home, the industrial machine of America came alive. And that's a big reason why, we won, because we were able to, kind of provide the firepower and the industrial needs that were required for such a global conflict. So, so cool to hear. Just you're just the senior in high school in the Bronx, and a year later you're in England, getting read in on a top secret program, saying if you talk about it, you're going to get shot by your own guys. I mean, it's humbling stuff, Bill.
Sure, I agree.
Bill, do you remember when you first heard you were going home then? And what were kind of your feelings when that took place?
Going home was great, but where we're going to be going home to, because the war was over for me in England when I was ready to go home, and there was still a war in Japan, and we heard that there's a good possibility that they would take away the B-24s from us and get us into B-29s, doing basically the same type of work that we've been doing. That was what they were talking about, but nobody really knew. We had good crap games, though.
So did you stay overseas for a while, or did you, how long were you over there before you finally got shipped back?
Oh, it didn't take too long before we were ready to go back. They were ready to send us back. They needed guys on this side to take care of Japan. So and no sense in hanging around. Whoever was there, patents, they were taking care of the rest of it.
And did it, when you were finally back in the Bronx, did it take some time to get readjusted, or did you find you found yourself back in a rhythm quickly?
Well, when I got back, when I got back from there, and I went to see my mother, nobody knew that I was coming home. And when I finally did get home, and I came home to where I lived, my mother was sitting out there with her friends, and I got out of the cab, took my duffel bag, started to walk toward her, and I walked over to her and I said, "Hi, Mom," and she looked at me and she didn't recognize me. I was gone for 2 years, almost 2 years.
Wow!
In that period of time, I have a picture of that too, showing my mother and me when I got out of that cab. But all I had to do was spend 30 days recuperating, and I was going to be sent now to other training for Japan. Fortunately, the war was over in that period of time, and naturally, I'm still wearing my uniform, and everybody in the streets is hugging and kissing and thank you, and this is what we had.
And did that change you? Like, I mean, that 2-year period, then moving forward, did you feel like a different man?
Sure. I felt at that time, I felt good that I made it back, because we slept in Nissen huts. That's those little Quonset huts, the little ones, and it was a whole crew in there, with the exception of the officers. The enlisted men were there. We never even got to talk too much to the other crews that were there. So we didn't know any of them. I didn't know one guy though. Like I said, I got into a crap game, and I won. I took all his money, and then he came to me and he said to me, "Bill, I'm in trouble. If we're going home, I haven't got any money left. You cleaned me out." I says, "Well, okay. What do you want me to do?" He says, "Lend me $100 and I'll send it back. Give me your address." I'm still waiting. It's 80 years already.
Well, hey, if you're charging him 8% interest, you're doing pretty well, Bill.
Yeah,
he'll collect on that.
If I were a banker, he would have gotten it. I mentioned that in it must have been 50 years. We had a reunion. I don't remember the exact time it was. The 801st 492nd had the reunion, and I mentioned that to in all the reunions. Every time I got up to make a speech, where's my $100? So everybody knows where's my $100.
Bill, as you prepare to join the Best Defense Foundation on their battlefield return and go to Normandy, what's on your mind? Are you excited for the trip? Do you think it'll stir up old emotions that you haven't felt in a while, or what's your outlook going into this trip?
Well, the last year's trip, there was really not that much emotion. When I got there, that's when the emotion started to get big. This year, it's a little different. This year, everything is the same. The same helper that helped me along. Eric. Eric, I had never met Eric. He was my helper, and he stood with me and took care of me because at that time it's 79 years already. So I'm a little bit different than I was many years ago. And of course, I'll probably get off of that subject. So, what was that last question?
I'm just curious on the emotions. What were the emotions you felt when you got there last year?
Oh, I felt good that I could see something that happened 79 years ago that I never thought that I would ever see in my life. And I got to meet a lot. I got to meet a lot of guys that were there at the time on the ground.
Yeah, Bill, I think what's fascinating to me is, we live in a time, obviously, with modern commercial air travel. And, if you go back to 1944, when we stormed the beaches of Normandy and kicked off that Western Front in the European theater, a lot of guys never made the return trip. And many guys were buried right there in Normandy, right, after D-Day. And their parents weren't even able to go see the burial. It's crazy. Like, so for any American, I highly encourage you at some point in your life, go over there and just go to the cemetery, because it will give you some crazy perspective, man. I see a lot of people in our country right now that don't appreciate the freedoms we have, and it's just give. And I think a little perspective going overseas and seeing one of our cemeteries on foreign soil and seeing, headstones as far as the eye can see. And I know for a lot of the guys returning, some of them were able to return to the grave sites of some of their friends that had died on the beaches of Normandy that they hadn't seen in 79 or 80 years, and that was their first time being back to their headstone, which is so emotional and very humbling. And that's why we're so proud to be a part of this program in a very small way. Of course, Donnie Edwards and his whole team deserves so much credit for the mission of bringing you guys back, our greatest generation. And, we're just trying to, in our own way, contribute to that. And that's why we're launching this shoe, as a way to financially support your mission. So, Bill, I'm going to be over there. I'm flying to France as well, so I will probably run into you. My brother and I are making the trip, and we actually have one of our individuals, Bruno, is going to be skydiving into Omaha Beach for the event.
Okay.
So that's a pretty cool thing. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. I got to go to the Pearl Harbor event with the Best Defense Foundation, but this will be my first Normandy trip with you guys. And I can't wait to hear the stories and talk with each one of you, and, hopefully come back with even more humility than I already have for what you guys did for us. And it's an absolute honor and a privilege that you're willing to share your story with us today.
I got one more thing for you.
Okay.
How I feel now about going back this year?
Yeah.
How as compared to last year?
Uh-huh.
Well, we had a 10-man crew. There are two of us left. My navigator and myself. My navigator is going to be there this year.
Wow.
And I haven't. He lives in Louisiana. I live in California. I had one time speaking to him on the telephone, never realizing that we're going to be able to get together again. And he, by the way, he's 90. He's a year older than me. I'm 98. He's 99. He's coming this year. And at that time, I said, years ago, I said to him, when we get together, we'll break open a bottle of wine. Well, we're going to have a magnum of champagne. I hope.
I love that. I love that. That is so cool, and I'm sure you guys will catch up right where you left off, like old times.
And I know exactly what I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him he was a great navigator, but he didn't navigate this one. I took care of this one, and I navigated into him.
Bill, I have one more question that I myself am curious, and I feel the listeners probably are too, is how the hell have you stayed so sharp this long? Because I think your memory is better than mine. So and any advice
can I say it a little risque?
Yeah, of course.
You drink a lot, you smoke a lot, and have a lot of sex.
That's the key, huh, Bill? That's the key. This whole time it's been that.
Why, I said something wrong?
No,
I didn't say anything wrong.
No,
you show me somebody that doesn't believe in me.
I love it.
We're gonna have to quote that, Bill.
Yeah,
we're gonna.
I'm getting a shirt with that on
it. Well, Bill, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in Normandy. I'm gonna be sure to come find you and say hello. Just look for the guy with the lion's mane over here, and again, really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story.
Well, I'm glad that I could do it.
Just very, very humbling to be able to have this conversation with you guys.
No problem.